Hey, you. Welcome back to the channel. And guys, today we get to the final conclusion of Star Trek Continues. And guys, as I was saying, this has just been a well done production, fan film that poured a lot of heart and soul into uh, putting together what was the last season of the original series that was perceived by Vic Mignogna and his production team here. Um, and they just did an excellent job from start to finish, didn't disappoint. And this is To Boldly Go Part 2. We left off with Part 1, and we were left with them dealing with a full accompaniment crew of espers, which were these psychic uh, uh, beings, human beings who had been exposed at the Great Barrier to these godlike powers. And this is taken from the original series, as we discussed, with Lieutenant Gary Mitchell, who they first encountered with these abilities and wreaked havoc on the crew. And so um, I was trying to figure out how were they going to deal with this ship full of espers. Uh, One of them was enough to just about destroy the entire ship, and now they have a ship full of these espers. But as I had kind of figured out in my mind that there would be someone left on the Enterprise who had the abilities to fight the other espers so they could even the odds. And one of the crew members, the ensign, she had been actually exposed to the Great Barrier, the barrier at least about a year earlier. And so, as we got to see, they're able to get her aboard the ship, in this conclusion. But what was very touching about the episode was, of course, what we got to see with the ship's counselor, McKenna, Dr. McKenna. We got to see throughout the series, her and Spock had actually cultivated a very close relationship, and Spock's dealing with his human side, his human emotions, all throughout the episode, as he, makes a judgment call to send McKenna over on the Esper ship, try to talk to them, try to get them to stop their course. Unfortunately, Dr. McKenna's thoughts can be heard by the Espers, and they don't like what they're hearing from her, from her thoughts, and so she is now in a dangerous position, on board the Enterprise, and what they did with Spock's character throughout this episode, I thought was great. We got to see him actually be in conflict, fight a lot with his human emotions and human side, and we finally get this very touching scene at the beginning where he's trying to save McKenna from the Espers as the ship's uh, being destroyed by the gallant efforts of the ensign, who was able to get, her name escapes me for some reason, but she was able to get on board, and she was able to basically overload the engine room. So when they're beaming McKenna back up, we got to see this scene where she's trapped in the transporter buffer. So she just has they can hold her pattern, her just long enough to for her and Spock to have this final touching moment. And what I like so much about this episode, guys, is there is this bridge between Star Trek Continues and Star Trek the Motion Picture. We get to see Kirk. Basically, they that was just so awesome how they did that. We get to see what happened in between that, Kirk becomes admiral. We get to see Spock go back to Vulcan, pick up his Vulcan studies, and the catalyst for this being McKenna's, his decision to send her aboard the Esper ship. Get to see Bones. Go see his daughter, who he hasn't seen in 5 years, and which I found quite interesting because I did notice on Star Trek: The Motion Picture, Bones is not there. At least in the big, and he's not there, and um, of course, that's because they're explaining away he decided to quit Starfleet, go see his daughter. Um, and just awesome production quality. We get to see a lot of more detail in the production models of the Enterprise. But what was so cool about this, and as I look back on my Star Trek history here, the first time I got to see the saucer separate from the ship and fly as two distinct vessels was in Star Trek: The Next Generation. But apparently they had the technology before. It was discussed before the saucer could separate. We actually get to see it happen in Star Trek Continues. I loved how they did that because they needed to flank the Esper ship, split up in two, be able to do that, and in order to be able to stop the Espers. And they were able to do that. I'm sorry, they were trying to create three ships because they had the aid of the Romulan vessel, and they separate the saucer from the rest of the ship. And they're able to attack from three different positions. And I just thought that was awesome. I didn't know they could do that in the original series, but I'm under the assumption that they were always able to do it, and we just didn't, we didn't see it until obviously the Next Generation, and Star Trek Continues kind of bridges the gap between at what point they were able to do that. That was something that they were always able to do. And I just thought that was awesome what we got to see. Sad to see this end. Sad to see this series end. A lot of us, I'm sure a lot of fans would love to see this go several seasons, but Vic Mignogna did say his only goal was to complete that final season, and I think he's going to stick with that. That's the last I think we've seen of this. Unfortunately, him saying that this was a project of love, and I guess that'll keep CBS off everybody's back and copyright. How CBS is when somebody takes something that makes it so successful and great. CBS, obviously it's their property, they own it, and they're trying to, commercialize it, and they don't, want too much of the, fans, I guess, doing too much with Star Trek, or then you hear the lawsuits and various things. So unfortunately, there does have to be a limit and a time to say goodbye. And that's what we're doing here, saying goodbye to Star Trek Continues. I've enjoyed these episodes. What high quality production and value. Really appreciated it. They were very attentive with this production, and just I could see the hard work that went into this. Good job, Vic Mignogna. Good job to all of the crew, the actors who, and crew members who did this. They did a real good job, really good job. So that's it, guys. Tell me your comments. Let me know what you thought about the Star Trek Continues mission here to complete the final season of the original series. Let me know if you thought they did as good a job as I feel they did. Guys, if you like content like this, don't forget to like, subscribe, and until next time, take care.